It's been a tumultuous American election year, gripped by civil unrest, conspiracy theories, historic job losses, and a deadly virus that has killed more Americans than World War I, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War combined. If he becomes president, Joe Biden will face a pile of challenges.
Canadians know from experience that decisions made here in Washington affect everyone. So how would a Biden presidency affect Canada? Let's break it down, starting with a pillar of his platform. He proposed clean energy revolution, which could have an immediate effect in Alberta.
After years of delay and disruption, construction is now just barely underway on the Keystone XL pipeline. It would carry nearly a fifth of Canada's oil exports to the U.S. This massive project is, once again, under threat. If Biden becomes president, he has vowed to cancel Keystone XL, which brings us to his sweeping climate plan.
So today, I'm announcing my plan for a clean energy revolution. It outlines what we have to do to meet this challenge head on.
That clean energy revolution would be fueled by nearly $2 trillion in spending to overhaul the electrical grid. Biden would immediately rejoin the Paris Accord, then push other nations to do more. He'd maybe even impose carbon tariffs on the worst polluters. This is something Canada needs to watch. Right now, it's falling short of its Paris targets.
This tariff talk brings us to international trade, which matters a lot to Canada, given how many of our exports are sold to the U.S. The Trump administration has unleashed waves of disruption, battering the WTO, hammering other countries with tariffs. But let's be clear, some of these challenges would persist under Biden. Softwood lumber, Buy American. These irritants aren't going away.
Federal government spends taxpayers' money. We should use it to buy American products and support American jobs.
Remember that $2 trillion climate plan? Well, Biden wants that work going to U.S. companies. But when it comes to other aspects of trade, he promises to be friendlier. That means no more national security tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, which Trump has imposed in the past and threatens to impose again. Susan Rice, who was a top contender to be Biden's running mate, says these tariffs should never have happened.
To say, as Donald Trump has, that we're going to impose steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada because Canada poses a national security threat to the United States, when Canada has been by our side in every major conflict. I mean, this is offensive.
Old alliances are being rattled in other areas too, like national defense. In his memoir, former Trump aide John Bolton writes that the current president constantly complains about NATO. He and others fear Trump might even leave the alliance in a second term. Joe Biden, on the other hand, is a firm believer in NATO, which has underpinned Western defense policy for 3/4 of a century. A renewed American commitment to NATO would carry benefits for Canada, but also potentially new risks for Canadian soldiers.
A Biden presidency will make Canadians safer in Latvia, where we have troops based there to deter the Russians. On the other hand, the job of NATO may become more expansive, where NATO actually gets asked to do things. Maybe there are things to do, maybe there are new missions, and it'll be much harder for a Canadian prime minister to say no to a popular American president than to say no to an unpopular American president. It's probably not asking for much.
A similar pattern repeats itself when it comes to China. Biden believes in alliances, yet alliances carry responsibilities. He plans to host a summit of democracies where countries can share their ideas on countering autocracy. There's already mounting pressure from the U.S. on multiple fronts to restrict trade with China in new technologies. But Canadians have learned angering China comes with a cost. After the arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the U.S., Canadian pork, beef, and canola farmers were all punished. And Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are still languishing in Chinese prisons.
U.S.-China tensions won't disappear with a Biden win. In this city, the mood toward Beijing has soured. In that Congress, bills targeting China over human rights abuses have passed with 100% support from both parties. So the superpowers will continue to clash, and Canada will continue to find itself caught in the middle.
Cannot be here.
Another important change involves immigration. Canada has felt the impact of Trump's numerous crackdowns, but the number of asylum seekers at the border is only a small fraction of it. In the past 4 years, Canada has enjoyed a historic boom in skilled immigration. As rules for U.S. visas kept tightening, more and more skilled workers and students looked north. All of that could soon change under Biden, who won't be nearly as strict, and that probably means stiffer competition for that talent.
So American influence touches virtually every aspect of Canadian life, from our economy to our security to the air we breathe. Pierre Trudeau famously compared living next to the U.S. to sleeping with an elephant. We'll always feel its twitches, even after November 3rd, though the nature and the frequency of those twitches could vary if Joe Biden wins this White House.
And Alex, how much of a focus do you expect a Biden administration would place on Canada?
Well, I don't think he'd place a huge focus on international issues at the start of his administration. Frankly, Joe Biden would take office with more challenges than just about all but 3 presidents over the last century. And that means that he'd spend a lot of time focusing on things like healthcare. 10% of Americans lack health insurance, and depending on the outcome of a Supreme Court case, it could be far more than that. And he'll want to get a healthcare bill through Congress. So that's the kind of thing he'll be focusing on. That being said, the reason we started off this piece with the environment is I do believe he'll re-enter the Paris Accord quickly and look to have a conversation with countries like Canada about climate change.
All right, Alex Panetta, thank you.
Thank you.